welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com Broiler Chicken Show. Trade your trading plans, don't take too much risk on any one trade, and just let yourself get rich. Hello, everyone. Hope you're having an okay Sunday. I guess this is now officially fall, eh? Where's our date bar? Here it is. 24th of September. I think September or fall actually officially starts like 20th or 21st. So heading into the final quarter of 2023. Oh boy, that we're all probably thankful. Mind you, actually, first half of the year actually was a lot of fun. Lots of rallies, but past month or so, geez, it's been a little bit tenuous out there. Tenuous? Is that a word? I don't know. Anyway, welcome back to the broadcast. I'll try my best to try and impart some value onto all of you. I do see the site participation's pretty quiet here. We got about, interesting, there's about 20 or so people sitting there before we got the video going. I'm not quite sure what the numbers are right now. And Chris and I are hanging out in the Hangout on our own, so interesting to see. Usually we have some regulars that pop in, but I guess with the malaise of the market, and now with the sort of the summer silly season kind of over in crypto land, I can understand maybe the enthusiasm is waning a little bit. Was asked to try and see if I can somehow spin positivity in the face of negativity. So I'll try my best here to try and PMA this as much as possible. I will say, though, the whole PMA sort of philosophy sure is put under a lot of pressure these days, given the what I would actually consider just outright theft of a generation's wealth in my eyes. And sadly, this is basically what the bankster class does, generation in, generation out. Did have a fun tweet, like Saturdays, what I like to do, and call me crazy, but I like to on Saturdays do like sort of broader research and fun sort of images and thoughts that jump out of my mind. And I spent some time working away on this yesterday. This was sort of my fun project for Saturday. Try to graphically illustrate what our reality really is. It's I guess you just don't think of it as actually, they are literally driving the train off the end of the cliff. And unfortunately, there's no way that this can end positively. The positivity of this, of course, this is why you all buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin tastes great. Right. And, people are now, I do find it interesting at the end of the cycle that people are now actually saying Bitcoin will never go to new all-time highs. And, it's all, there's all these reasons why you will never see price go up again, blah, 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 same old nonsense. And I actually might argue that those are the hallmarks. That's exactly what you want to hear at the bottom of the market. You want to hear everybody say it's all a scam. You want to hear that it's all crooked and it's all out to screw the public over. But remember, the public buys the top. I mean, where was Alan? On Saturday Night Live. Interesting how nobody in the public seems to make reference to that kind of stuff anymore. Just conveniently forgotten. Why? I have no idea, but it just seems to be the hallmark of the public. And frankly speaking, I can kind of understand why a lot of people in the sort of institutional side say, Brian, don't bother interacting with the public. They'll never learn. But, half the reason why I went on this crazy adventure 10 years ago with all of you was to try and make a dent And I think to a certain degree, those people that are willing to listen and are willing to learn, I think we've made a positive difference in your guys' lives. And actually, speaking of which, we're going to try and, of course, in these November sales events and all that kind of stuff, we really like to try and highlight the positivity, if that is a word. But like, why would you come to TRI? And generally speaking, I think we have the message nailed down, but actually this past week, we actually put out a questionnaire to our community. Why would you join TRI? Why would you join either the education program or the basic site to be a part of our community? And as well as things like our proprietary tools to try and help you see the market. So if you are a TRI member, we've had a few responses to this form. I'm not looking for doctoral dissertations, but to try and help us articulate this message for the public, try and like, why is Brian doing all this? And how can we clearly articulate this message into this November window? I'd love for you guys all, if you could, as many of you as possible, if you could just pop in and maybe just tell us a little bit. What about, like, what is some of the pain that you have maybe potentially, or you have not, maybe potential or maybe not, maybe actual, that you've realized in the past when it comes to speculating or investing or whatever, trading, whatever you want to call it, and how has TRI helped you relieve that pain? And the responses back, actually, I think are pretty what I would expect. Things like, before I knew TRI, I was subject to revenge trading. And of course, I was chasing up markets and chasing down markets and panic dumping down markets. And now I understand that actually to win at this game, you have to do the exact opposite. And having Brian just, hammer the message home day in, day out is a benefit, stuff like that. So I have just posted the link in the members lounge there on TRI. If you are a site member, we'd love to get your feedback. And it's a collective. Just understand that if you do answer here, it's a collective, that we're all putting all this information together, just trying to brainstorm so that when we get ready for this November sales event window, we can clearly articulate why it is that you benefit from joining TRI. So I wanted to just do a little public service shout out for that. If you have a moment, we'd love for you to fill out the form. As well too, of course, these Sunday shows, this is the opportunity for the level 1 students to get a little bit added attention, a little bit added feedback. Some of the core concepts that you're going to have to learn through this first few weeks as a level 1er. It's a bit of information overload. So I do give you all the opportunity to ask me questions as well when we had like the super insane class sizes, which we usually get at the top of the crypto markets. It gets absolutely insane. Public, of course, coming in at the top of the market, typical. So it can be a little overwhelming for the Griminator and any assistants that he happens to have. I think Peter's his assistant this term. But not seeing too many questions being posted. I think the class sizes are relatively small. So Grim is able to sort of speak to you all individually. But if you happen to have questions and you are a site member, I'll post this in the members lounge as well. Please feel free to pop in here. Ask me anything you want. FYI, Liam's birthday is in 2 days. It's on Tuesday. So I don't know. It's just trivia for you. Maybe your question was, when's Liam's birthday? Love to get him a card. I don't know. The reason why I mentioned that is I am teaching the level 3 program this term. And it's more of like a hybridization because we really want to try and reformat this level 3 class, make it look a little bit slicker. And I'm going to have to probably miss the secret options formula club meeting this Tuesday because Liam's birthday. Obviously, as soon as I'm done class, I'm off to spend the afternoon, evening with Lily and try and give him the best day possible. And of course, when I've done this this call with you guys, I will be heading off for Liam and giving him an awesome afternoon as I can. So while you're sitting here listening to me, by all means, as I always say, appreciate your karmic best wishes. Um, he is going through a bit of a difficult time right now, and he usually does have a bit of a difficult time heading into the fall. And around his birthday and stuff, this is usually a bit of a tough time for him. So your karmic best wishes, highly appreciated. And I'm eternally grateful for Spirit trying to help us from the other side as much as possible too. Keep asking you, God, for guidance. And Jojo and Joby and James and all our other loved ones who are over on the other side rooting for us. So please just, I'm in your hands, Spirit. You tell me what to do. I will listen and I will follow your guidance. So, and usually what ends up happening is sort of people will just pop up out of nowhere and say, Brian, this is what I think you should do. Brian, I think that's what you should do. Also, too, I'm not I don't have a monopoly on sadness in life. We're all going through our respective, I don't even know what you call them, challenges. It's kind of a poo-poo word. So, karmic best wishes for everybody who's going through very difficult times right now. One gentleman in particular, you know who you are. My heart bleeds for you. I think about you all the time. And I told you I'd be willing to hop on a plane and come down and be with you at a moment's notice if you need me. So you just give me the word, sir, and I'll be there. This is on top of the fact that we have the banksters all really screwing us over, and government's making our lives difficult. We got the regular life shit that gets in the way. Oh goodness. Anyway, can't write better fiction than reality, as they say, right? So if you do have questions for me, feel free to post. Love to get your feedback if you are a site member on how we've maybe helped you. Might even put this out for the public, but I really do like the idea that this is like sort of for site members to try and articulate why you're a site member at TRI and how we've helped you. As well too, of course, we've been, Chris and I have been of late making it a habit to try and sort of clearly articulate the sort of public message on a weekly basis for you guys and girls and houseplants. So I've been working away on this little one-pager newsletter that you can sign up for. You can get it for free. You just go to this this URL up top here. And Chris diligently produces this first thing Sunday morning. Then I come in and help him with a little bit of wording and stuff, and maybe talk a little bit about some of the different ideas that I wanted to kick around through the broadcast. So I think probably what we'll do next is why don't we head on over here, and we'll spend a few minutes working away on this document, just sort of give you a general idea of what I'm seeing in the market. Start off with, of course, breadth indicators. A lot of time oscillators, momentum oscillators will sort of sit right around the 50 line. Not really overly bullish, not really overly bearish. And when we get into trading ranges, momentum oscillators can often just get chopped up back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I get the feeling that that's basically what we're in right now. If we go back to the back to the weekly commodity trend survey that well, no, actually that's not the right term. Just we'll call it weekly summary of Bitcoin. I pointed out, I think really even over here, that I believe that resistance is about 28 Gs and support seems to be this big fat round number against the Fink I want an ETF low that was put in there at the end of June. And we've just been bouncing back and forth between these two levels. And unfortunately, now we actually have two shooting stars. And actually, it's kind of fun. Recently, I've been working with, oh, that's nice, getting a little bit of a pop-up here. That's good to see. Been working recently with the Coinigy people. I would like to get working more and more sort of on the educational side, try and sort of educate people that are relatively new to this game. How do you force yourself to buy down markets? How do you force yourself to sell up markets? And which is basically the exact opposite to what the public does. Those kind of things. And Joe over at Coinigy has been working with me for a while. It's been a lot of fun working with him. So I think he's a really, really good example of the public. I don't know whether we put it out on the TRI PMA feed. We probably should. But I don't even know where the hell the damn page is here. I think I tweet this out. Do I? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Oops, not there. So on Wednesdays, and you don't have to watch it live, but definitely educational watching it after the fact. Where the heck is that? You can see I tweet way too much. There we are. Bitcoin and altcoin trading talk. And Joe is he's actually a really, really good sort of, I'm a public guy. I'm smart as a whip. I think he's working on his master's degree while he's working full time for Coinigy. And I even challenged him. I said, I bet by the time you finish working with me, you could probably go to that master's program and teach him a few things that I'll show you. And those people there will be like, ooh, wow, ooh, that's neat. Oh, you're smart. I've had a lot of people over the years tell me that the TRI education program is way more valuable than any university education program, which is such a shame. And the amount of money that these damn universities charge is just criminal. Just so you can get that MSc, or I guess the master's, I don't know, MBA or whatever at the end of your name from whatever school, so that you can be accepted as intelligent. Anyway, so Bitcoin and altcoin trade talk. Do yourself a favor and watch out. In fact, actually, we've had some really great sort of screenshots and pictures and stuff come out of this. In fact, actually, if I'm not mistaken, I thought I remember. Maybe I have to come over onto their Twitter feed. Yeah, I mean, we had a really fun time. People asked me on the show, which is what this was supposed to be originally, just to pull apart names. And if I was a trader, what kind of setups would I be looking for? If I was an investor, what kind of levels would I be looking for? It's very, very educational. Everybody can learn from this. So on top of these Sunday shows, I think try and make it a habit if you can. You can always put me on 2x speed. It's an easy way to sort of distill the message down. And I think it's an excellent educational material. So anyway, be sure to watch out for that. Okay, so first things first, what the hell happened in this past week? Obviously, we're all focused in on these FOMC US interest rate decisions. I get the impression that we're probably coming to near to the end of the interest rate increasing cycle. I used to show you that awesome euro dollar chart that I used to have, which was just such a perfect backdrop to the 4-year interest rate cycles. And then, of course, they took the euro dollar market away. Fuckers. So we can't really do that study any longer. I have been trying to figure out how to work with their now short-term interest rate proxies, but they're not market-based. They're just basically following whatever the Fed's doing. I would much prefer a market-based proxy. The issue here, though, is that how long is it going to take for the broader market to actually start doing what the Fed wants it to do, which is calm down? And we've been seeing the stock market actually relatively firm. It hasn't really like cracked in earnest. And actually, I think somebody even posted, which is a little bit concerning because this is just going to add to the inflation problem. I think I've been talking to you guys about China and what it's doing. I think somebody posted, well, okay, so it's not that big of a deal. Thought I saw somebody was posting like outside upside reversals and stuff out of these markets. And it's kind of interesting what happened here, right? Just a violent gap higher. So I don't know whether that's usable information, but let's see, where are we here? I think we called it like the China trade or something like that. China trade, beg your pardon. So is this thing starting to firm up here? I don't know. I don't really have too many buy signals here. Somebody did post a chart out of Chinese names that were jumping up. This is the Hang Seng Index done by TradingView. And their TradingView image, yeah, I guess that's probably the image everybody was seeing. That's basically an outside upside key reversal there. Very powerful signal. So something's happening over there. And I mean, I suppose you could argue, I'm hearing a lot of people say that the meltdown that you've seen in China of late is actually like a mirror of sort of the .com meltdown, where 2000 was the peak of the US market. I affectionately call that the greed cycle. And if anything, I think this makes perfect sense. In our education program, I teach all of you that I believe that 2017, 2018, in fact, October of 2017 was basically the peak of the fear market. And, if you think about it, like North America growth and, US dollar as sort of world hegemony kind of idea, that's one world. And then China here, ironically enough, probably if you pile all of China together, it probably equals the same size as our Western markets. So top of the fear cycle, or basically the anti-Western growth cycle, you see the top in the Chinese market. I think there's a lot of validity to that kind of thinking. The question is, we're way down here. Is it really a good idea to actually be thinking about shorting this market, considering the highs were way up there? And of course, you hear what's going on in China right now. It's an absolute shit show. But isn't that usually the hallmarks of bottoms of markets? I don't know. That's a tough one. I have been sort of wondering, is there going to be some sort of big sort of Lehman moment out of China? Where, and these real estate developing companies in China are just an absolute train wreck. But the interesting thing about China, of course, is that, Big Brother will step in and they'll just nationalize stuff if it looks like it's about to break the economy in earnest. So, because of that fact, um, the United States government, they're very reluctant to actually do quote unquote bailouts. Especially remember that like Lehman Brothers and all that happened under a Republican administration down in the States. And the Republicans are very anti government bailouts, right? They would just be happy with companies going bankrupt. I mean, they wouldn't be happy, but so Paulson was sort of injected into the equation there at the very end of the 2000 to 2008 was George Bush Jr. The whole, manufactured wars. We accidentally lost $1.2 trillion. You got to be kidding me. CIA now is indefinitely funded with something like I think it's like $50 billion a year budget, and there's no congressional oversight on any of that. Oh my God. I mean, that's the world that we live in now, folks. And I do think that part of that $50 billion a year budget went into building your Bitcoins. I think there was no accident. And I even in this tweet that I put out, if you think about the dates and all that, it makes a lot of sense. U.S. went into basically a really really bad demographic situation there a few years ago, and they had to print money to get their way out of it. I mean, it totally screws the public over. But do you think that the banksters give a fuck about the public? I mean, come on. So that's this image. I mean, it's interesting. There is your quantitative easing starts. There's your U.S. Financial crisis. They call it the GFC. What a joke. I mean, come on. This was all about the U.S. big banksters just lending too much money. And I remember I was a broker through all this. And I remember, I mean, this is where Liam was born. I mean, my wife, I mean, I lived a completely different life. And on the TV every single day, there was this little roly-poly guy, and he was like, lost another loan to Ditech. Ditech.com was lending money to those buying mortgages, going right, left, and center. And anybody could get a mortgage if they wanted it, right? Blah, 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 all that nonsense. So you could argue that really, and interestingly enough, you can see that once we got into sort of this Burr kind of world, you can see how the slope of this money printing accelerated. And then, interestingly enough, this is the Jupiter Saturn cross right here. So it is interesting that the previous Jupiter Saturn cross was right here. That was the end of the good times in the US. And then we had a Jupiter Saturn cross right here. That was the height of the US interest rate market. And you might even argue, the beginning of Paul Volcker and the war on inflation and all that kind of nonsense. But, really, I think all this started, of course, and you've all seen the tweets and stuff. In fact, actually, we even, I think on the Twitter feed, I even had this earlier. I just like to retweet this stuff just so you guys all just know, don't get conned into the bullshit that you hear from these banksters. I mean, this dot plot shit, this is a load of horse shit. This is these bureaucrats trying to actually justify their jobs. And the irony of it all is that, Chappelle, of course, when he's throwing money at the public and everybody, stock prices are going through the roof because of the hyperinflation and stuff. Everybody loves him. And, I want to have your baby. And in the latest one, we've got one guy on the site who is sort of keeping track of the number of reporters that actually use the Chappelle expression. That's whenever we hear that, it's like, oh, they want to have his baby. Those numbers are diminishing. But it's even funny that even through this last Fed meeting, they were kind of like, or Powell was kind of like, well, we're not really very good at predicting the future in so many words. So this kind of stuff is This is the bureaucrats trying to justify their six-figure incomes. And it's a load of horse shit, and it's always wrong. The Fed always does too much or too little, one of the extreme, too late, and they go for way too long. So what's going to end up happening here is they're going to break something, and then all of a sudden this crap will all shift, and everybody will be in a great panic to lower interest rates as fast as possible. If you ever want to think about the U.S. Federal Reserve, remember what Alan Greenspan said, because frankly speaking, I think he was one of the best Fed chairmen around, and he was very critical of the Nixon shock. And he even said that this is basically the confiscation of a nation's wealth, right? Direct quote. And that's what this image is. Make no mistake about it, folks. This is basically the theft of your livelihoods. That's what this is, especially in the face of there are your average hourly earnings over the same period. Somebody here is making out like a fucking bandit. You know, like if I was a spread trader, I'd want to buy the Fed money printing and short Joe Sixpack. And I just keep making more money and more money and more money as this spread gets wider and wider and wider. But what this really is this is your standard of living. By me going long the Fed and their money printing and short Joe Sixpack, what I'm really saying is I want to short your standard of living. I think your life is going to get considerably worse over the past 20, 30 years. I said that's exactly what's happening. And the interesting thing about this is that you can see the US Fed understanding. And I think what's so ironic is that this guy here, Mr. Jerry Powell, he was actually one of George Bush Sr.'s cronies. He's technically a hard money guy. He's technically or sound money, whatever you want to call it. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Jerry himself owns a big whack of Bitcoins to try and hedge this bullshit that they're doing to our society here. That's the true irony of the this situation here is that, and I think that's half the reason why he has aged so dramatically, is that I think he actually bought into all this MMT bullshit. And I actually added it to this video because this is such a perfect. Interestingly enough, the Fraser Institute, if I'm not mistaken, and I probably am mistaken, but the Fraser Institute actually was like a think tank here in Canada. I'm not quite sure. I must be wrong about that. But anyway, there is a Fraser Institute here in Canada. But this actually was like a 2 or 3 minute video that just absolutely perfectly explains what inflation is and how, and just simply, you know, like in their modern day YouTube, social media nonsense, right? We all live in these funny cartoon sort of conversations. So they've got like an illustrator that just sort of in simple terms just explains what inflation is. And this is just basically going back, good old Milty. And actually, I didn't even realize this. He wrote a book about U.S. monetary policy from the end of the Second World War into the 1960s. And sort of debunked a lot of the sort of reasons why the people in the 1960s thought what was causing inflation. But the really simple conclusion is you print money, it causes inflation. It's just that simple. And the great part about it is that with sites like TradingView and stuff, now you can clearly see what exactly he's talking about. This is printing money like a drunken whore. And you know that George Gammon guy's always going on your drunk, insolvent Uncle Sam, right? Well, this is drunk insolvent. I mean, this, you know what this is? This part right here, this is scary. This is Weimar Germany. This is exactly what Weimar Germany went through when they couldn't make the war reparation payments to France and Great Britain and stuff following the First World War. They were just like, fuck it, just turn the printers on. They want 1 billion marks to do these war reparations. Fine. Brrr, there's 1 billion marks. Merry Christmas. Way you go. And of course, we all know what happened with Weimar Germany. This is scary, this kind of rate of growth. Now, as I said there a moment ago, it, me, I'm a Canadian, and the situation in Canada, I mean, the hyperinflation here is ridiculous. I was even on just a Joe Schlub real estate thing, of course, because I want to buy a home for my son and get him out of the fucking institutional setting that he's living in. And they show a price chart from 2013, right after, thanks, Jojo, right after she passed, how a typical house price in Lower Mainland was $300,000. And now, in the past 10 years, it is well over million and a half dollars for just a piece of shit house. So, ironically enough, you see that, and of course, why is that the case in Canada still? There's no sort of calming down. Well, I mean, you just pull up the damn price chart, right? If we go Canada M2, I don't know there. Yeah, there you go. Do you see any slowdown in this? None whatsoever, right? In fact, you can see just even recently, they've ticked it right back up against the old highs here. So, ironically enough, me as a Canadian, I have to look at the US and just say, well, actually, I'm a little bit envious because, and I do see that the real estate market down in the United States, it's calming down. And a lot of the sort of absolute insanity price pressures that we saw in places like Nashville, Tennessee, or Knoxville, Tennessee, or something like that, or Austin, Texas, and just the weirdest places in the US where they were having housing price inflation. A lot of those prices are starting to come back down to earth. So ironically enough, I as a Canadian have to look in envy at what's happening. At least the Americans are trying to rein this in. But how do you undo this damage? I don't even think you can undo this damage. No, well, rents will come down last if they ever do, Andre. I'm talking about house prices themselves. But and then again, Andre, like I just said there a second ago, I mean, how do you undo this? Will we ever get back to, I mean, just keep in mind, 10 years ago is like right here, right? Will we ever get back to these kind of prices in our society? No way, never. What's probably going to happen is they're going to try and bring this number back into sort of trend line growth. But are we ever going to see money supply get back down into sort of reasonable area here? I doubt it. I think probably what happens is, and what's scary, and this has sort of been my final conjecture of this, is maybe the Fed sort of says, okay, fine, we'll try and be a little bit more austere. And you actually see an M come in on this. And if it does, then that to me says that we will have to go through a Great Depression type scenario. And maybe if we're lucky in fucking communist Canada, maybe that's potentially what could happen here. Is if an M can come in here, because keep in mind we're in the fear part. We were in the fear part of the cycle. We're now transitioning back into the greed part of the cycle, which means that I should, by definition, be actually more bullish of places like the United States and them getting a little bit of austerity back into their markets. There's actually a little bit of value in the market versus communist Canada, which is a fear proxy. And if anything, this thing has to crash. I mean, it just doesn't. I mean, again, if we think just trendline growth, first and foremost, I mean, this isn't sustainable over time. This is ridiculous. But like what was really interesting, I saw that George Gammon guy, he made a video recently, and I'm kind of wasting time here. Sorry, just keep going back over this. But he actually made an argument that probably if we use this is just average hourly earnings kind of idea. But if we do this, if you look at the CPI index, it should look something along these lines. In Canada, it's even worse. That the typical Canadian, and I'm going to be interesting to see how we could overlay this, but a typical Canadian's earnings, they just can't even make rent payments now on these houses. And actually, for the longest time in Canada, it was sacrilegious to talk about things like homelessness. There was just no way in our socialist, communist utopia that anybody would ever be homeless. Now, in our society, we have people living in tents in every major city, just like the United States of America. It's really sad how this has all gone. So, the point of the matter here is there's no end to this bullshit here in Canada. And I go to the grocery store every fucking time I go there, the prices are higher and higher and higher. So, and then of course we had people say, well, Brian, but what's the positive of this? How do you spin this positively? I'm not quite sure. I told there's a government worker guy who sort of, works with Liam and the whole team there. And I said, look I'm just leaving my money in the bank and there is no bloody way in hell, and collecting interest, of course, to try and offset this insanity. But there's no way in hell I'm going and buying a house and getting locked into financial basic mortgage interest rate slavery for the rest of my life to buy a shitty piece of crap house here in the lower mainland for $1 million. I mean, that's just stupidity. So it just means that, Liam's got to live under these conditions for a few years longer until this stupidity finally breaks. I don't know what it's going to look like, but if anything, and I used to ask this years ago. In fact, I remember specifically, I asked in 2000 when we were going through that bubble peak, and there was quite a peak in Vancouver real estate through that market when Nortel was 35% of the entire Canadian stock market. And I asked if there was any bearish real estate proxies that you could buy for the Vancouver real estate market. And people actually looked at me like I was from another planet. And it was like sacrilegious to think about shorting real estate. So I guess that's probably my answer for you. But I don't know how you short. The way that I think that you short this is the way that I think you short it. What is it? I think they do a D now for the Canadian dollar. You never know what the hell. They're always changing the symbols, trying to make it more difficult for us. Maybe it's C. Canadian dollar. There it is. Oh, it's C now. All right. So C6. I think this is the way that you short this market. And of course, what are we supposed to think if we ever see the market smiling at us? So the writing's on the walls. The issue here, though, of course, is I'm a Canadian dollar bear for like 15 years, right? So how long does this take to play out? If anything, what I think's happening here is this is going to be a bear flag. And, this is the way the guys actually make a lot of money in this world. This is, the way George Soros originally made his fortune. And they said, George Soros broke the Bank of England. Well, not really. The Bank of England broke itself because of stupid policies. And this is exactly the same thing that's happening. The Bank of England or English society back in the 1960s and 70s was just over the top, insanely socialist. And so, what a big surprise. In fact, actually, I don't want to fuck up this China trade chart. How do I do this? We'll go make a copy. We'll call this the Canadian dollar bear bot. And then let's put this back so we don't lose all that wonderful China data. So it's interesting because, somebody had pointed out that we had an outside upside key reversal there on oh God, how far back did I screw this up? But I don't like, just give me a second here. There we go. Don't want to mess that up. I don't see the key reversal here on things like the TradingView Hang Seng Weekly Index, but remember we saw that on the daily chart. So I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But if you listen to that Peter Zahn guy on social media as well, he's kind of like, make no mistake about it, this is not a bull market. China's unwinding. I don't know, caveat emptor, I suppose. As it stands for now, I think we have to just simply wait for the market to try and resolve above this 19,620 level. Is that a double bottom working? Maybe. So if we could maybe get that to confirm, and then a third low, well, maybe if you're a China bull, we can think about buying, but I'd be leery at best here. And there is, of course, a lot of ties with the Chinese government and substitute drama teachers. I don't even want to say the Canadian government because, frankly, I don't think the guy that he actually represents Canadians. It's just his little despotic sort of "I'm a love child of Fidel Castro" communist sort of thinking, and he just absolutely distorted our country. In fact, they've been doing latest polls in Canada recently, and Polyev, the opposition guy, he's got like a 2-1 lead in the polls now over who's actually going to be a good leader for this country going forward. So I think the Canadian population is losing interest in substitute drama teachers nonsense. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. So back to our conversation here about the Canadian dollar. Is this the copy? Oh yeah, isn't that weird how that didn't even do that? Anyway, I want to make sure we don't lose this. And actually, this should be Canadian dollars. So let's go. Let's do that again just for fun. What the hell? So what was that? That was C6, 1 exclamation mark under futures. Yeah, or maybe it's 6C. Why they have a 6 there? No clue. All right, so then let's put this back. So we'll make that 1, and we'll go like so. Whoops. Boom. Okay. So just to finish this off, this is the way that I think that this is going to play out. It's just Brian's opinion. Who cares? But some of you guys like my market thoughts. So something along the lines, remember we said, if you ever see the market smiling at you, this is a dangerous sign. You probably should run for the hills. I think the trader's got a trade, was this smile right there. And I wouldn't be surprised if this chaos 2.618 is right down in here. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Let's see what we got. Oh yeah, look at that. This is incredible how this stuff just writes itself. So that's what I'm sort of seeing right now. And if that's the case, then what's this big honking like higher time frame? You know what? Why don't we change this a different color so it's a little easier to see. Maybe I'll do that like there. And this is a really good proxy on, you hear Brian go, oh, Canada's a short. Commodity countries' currencies are a short. Well, learn from this. Absolutely learn. Remember, I was a commodities broker for a long, long period of time. We were like all just insanely uber bullish of the Canadian dollar right in here. And you should all look at this and go, oh, yeah, that looks like one of those W things that Beamish guy absolutely loves. So what a big surprise. And of course, we had gold was breaking out, oil, and of course, the George Bush crony and bullshit made up wars and stuff. So this stuff works, folks. It works. Just you got to respect the message of the market, though. Anyway, huge top. Top's actually been confirmed. So the market itself is saying, I want to go to 29 cents on the dollar versus the US dollar. And frankly speaking, to fix the Canadian hyperinflation, this is what I think has to happen. And of course, this is going to absolutely destroy the Canadian economy. How long this takes to play out, who knows? But I hear lots of people talking about how we're basically living in a banana republic right now. And I got to say, when I go to the grocery store and then you just look at what these a lot of the people that are in the market too now are people that didn't even live in Canada, let alone be Canadians. that didn't even live in Canada through this environment over here. In fact, actually, we could do a nice little price channel here. Interesting. Never did not expect I was going to spend today dissecting the Canadian dollar with you all. So there's probably the pace of which it happens, somewhere like there. Boobity boo, boobity boo. So when does that project? And this makes perfect sense because, you know, the way this is supposed to work is we have 17 and a half year greed cycle and 17 and a half year fear cycle. So we transition from a bullish Canadian backdrop here. So here to here, this was from 2000. Don't even see it. Thanks, TradingView. And of course, is this intentional by the 1% to make it so that you guys can't see this image? You can't see the long-term message? Absolutely. But anyway, so going through this is the positive environment for the commodities, positive environment for Canada. George Bush and all his buddies ran up the oil price commodity into absolutely insane levels. Then, of course, they all ran for the hills here and sold everything. They ran up U.S. housing market, a commodity. They ran up gold. And interesting enough, how gold has actually had a hard time to get going since then. Then they all leave Washington in a hurry and hand it over to this Obama guy. And he muddles his way through, tries to bring the economy back by hyperinflating it. So in reality, this isn't really real. It might be interesting to actually even do this, because keep in mind, all of these fiat currencies are really based off the US dollar. So we'll value the Canadian dollar versus the amount of US dollars that are actually in the marketplace. And yeah, this is what I kind of thought this image would look like. So you tell me, are commodity prices anywhere near the value that they were when George Bush and all his buddies ran the market up there in 2005, 2006, 2007, lost another loan to Ditech and all that kind of talk? I mean, look how bad this is. So, and again, this is another perfect illustration. This is the destruction of your standard of living if you live in the West. Absolute destruction. Anyway, back to trader talk, blah, blah, blah. And just imagine, what is this going to look like when it goes down to that 29 cents? Oh, boy. Anyway, what I think is going to cause this bear is that the socialists just either they don't want to hear this message of Milton Friedman's money printing is inflation, or this is all part of their plan, right? Klaus and the Great Reset. And, you know, how do you keep the banksters and Rothschild's business model humming along? Well, if you get into a point where the debt outstanding just represents too big of a chunk of GDP, well, then you just go and hyperinflate the economy so that the amount of debt relative to the size of the GDP, relative to the size of the economy, i.e. the money supply, isn't over 100% anymore. And you know, the way you do that is you hyperinflate everything, print money. Right? And unfortunately, standard of living collapses. So, okay. As I was trying to point out there, but I'm just sort of wasting everybody's time here today. Sorry, everyone. But this always happens when I start talking about my country. What a train wreck this country is. If I go bot setup, boom, have we done? Whoops, of course, and it's always backwards when I draw it. I have no idea, but it always is. So we'll go reverse. All right, so did the market retrace 33%? Yes. Did it go beyond 66? No. All right, well, can I start hunting for 3 lower highs and 3 lower lows to frame a trade, since this recent high is a new high? What I really want to see, and it's interesting how they started to break this, right? 1 high, 2 highs, 3 highs. All right, we're starting to work our way lower. And then somebody stepped in and said, thou shalt not go any lower here. And of course, what a coincidence. That was right into massive hyper money printing sickness. Hey, we're all just going to pretend that we're not economics majors and we live in this phony baloney world where MMT and Jupiter Saturn cross. We could do anything we want. You're going to have like men who clearly look like men entering into female athletic competitions and absolutely destroying the females. And yet, hey, it's perfectly all right. I mean, that's how fucked up this world got through that. And if anything, beautiful analogy of that Jupiter Saturn Pluto cross, cats and dogs living together, men, it's perfectly all right. Chop your dick off. Now you're officially a woman. You can go into Olympic athletic events and just destroy the women because physiologically, you're just a completely different creature. But hey, everything's all right. That's perfectly fine. And if anything, I'm so pleased to see that the backlash from all that nonsense is finally happening. And the females, the actual real females, are like, hey, enough is enough. This is ridiculous. I mean, that story, I think, and this is, of course, Brian getting himself into trouble sociologically, but that story in itself, I think, is going to be the hallmark of how fucked up that whole sickness, Jupiter Saturn cross, insanity of the human experience world that we just went through. If anything, it almost feels like we're getting back to normal. And if that's the case, it's interesting how if we did this measured move, boom, 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 and you traded this, how am I going to do this? We will go bot trade. And of course, it's backwards. There we go. This first stab, it did get a pretty powerful signal. The sickness came, all hell broke loose, and then instantly, what did they do? They literally just ran the stops and then resumed the move. So really good analogy of a trader's life. So I would say same thing here. So one high, two highs, three highs. We're breaking down here. This is the bot's trade level, and the bot just here, boom, 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 A, B, C, D. Its target is 45, and I still think that this is working. I would have said that this target in the 40s was the original downside target, and it's probably something like, I don't know, can you go? There? Maybe it's like there to there, something like that. I tell you, man, the interesting thing is that we're all expecting the poop to just really hit the fan in through this 2027 window. So I don't know whether I'm as bearish of the US dollar itself, but I am just absolutely insanely uber bearish of the Canadian dollar. And anybody living in this country, it makes perfect sense. I mean, the whole dynamic of the Canadian economy is completely broken. In fact, you often hear, Chair Bao say, and I think it's half the reason why they're trying to get their act together here. These modern day economies can't work. They cannot function if inflation is out of control. And we know, don't kid yourself, we know that inflation is a function of government money printing, Mr. Milton. Actually, geez, this sounds like a broken record. So the fact that these stupid Canadian bureaucrats just have not gotten the message, or maybe they have gotten the message, it's just they don't give a fuck because they're doing Klaus's, Great Reset, Rothschild's money printing out the ass to try and continue on this business model. And the solution is fuck the public. Public's gonna go through a lot of pain here. Anyway, I don't, as long as substitute drama teachers are driving the bus here, I can't see any way that this does not play out. It just seems, and this is exactly what I would expect from this point on. 2018, we are now in a greed cycle, which means you have to stay the fuck away from these commodity currencies. Just do yourself a favor. If anything, if that's the message of today's video, just stay the hell away from these commodity currencies and countries. It's just not worth it. This is just going to be, and we know that this cycle doesn't turn again until 2035. And you can see that that's not even on my screen. This cycle will go on until morale improves, right? The beatings will go on until morale improves. But 31, 33, so you can kind of eyeball it. 35 should be somewhere around there. So this cycle does not pivot back in Canada's favor. Keep in mind, 2000, this was when the cycle pivoted in Canada's favor. I guess that would be like 99. So right around there, right? And you got the double bottom and woohoo, get long Canada and get rich. But this is uber ugly. Now, I think, like I said a moment ago, I think they bought themselves. And you could argue too, you could argue that the 1% knew what was about to happen here. And all of a sudden, mysteriously, a crisis comes in that gives them justification to step in and do things like, well, you know what, we're going to mandate that you all get locked in your cage and we're all going to send you welfare checks for the next, year or two, a couple years, It's been a couple years of this. I mean, because that's literally what they did was they basically, that's what socialism is. I don't know. Do you guys have welfare checks in your respective country? And do they have welfare? I mean, they used to call it welly here in Canada, and it was kind of like it's socially you're not. I mean, I suppose down in the States they have food stamps. I don't know whether they have welfare in your country, but in essence, the entire country went on welfare through this, which is kind of interesting how the actual currency moved up through that. And I think it was sort of like, okay, well, the powers that be are going to go turn the printing presses on, this insanity. And so as a result, that's going to inject a whole bunch of economic activity, which of course is going to inject a whole bunch of demand for commodities. But it was all bullshit. It's all fugazi. It's all fluff. And I'll tell you, I mean, now in this situation, what I see is, oh boy, is this another smile coming in here? So, anyway, it is what it is. I should probably stop talking about this. It just gets me more and more upset. The question, I suppose, is what's the positivity, right, TBG? So, in fact, actually, he's not even here today because he's like, I can't handle more negativity from Brian. It's just going to piss me off. But how do we approach this positively? And I'm kind of thinking, look at this image. I'm kind of thinking, I think I want to go buy some put options. See if we maybe even do a put spread. Like what would be a cool trade would be to do something like maybe buy the, I don't know whether I want to buy that. Maybe buy something like a 69 put because psychologically, man, the Canadians are going to die 1,000 deaths if they see their currency below 69. And then maybe like write the 50, maybe even like the 59 put option. So a nice bear put spread. So I'll buy that. I'll write that. And then hopefully the market moves up to the point where here on the spread, we can actually sell 2/3 of the position if we get a nice dump against these lows. And this midpoint of the trend line looks to be pretty powerful. And then you have a free runner on. And at that point, with the free runner, you can always pull the spread off and just ride it all the way down if you want, or just blow the whole thing out at the maximum profit on the spread down here. But that would be my positivity. Also, too, I still do like, in fact, actually, I should probably build how do we short the shit out of Canada and make a fortune off of these bastards? I think that's going to be my theme going forward. I still love the idea of being short these Canadian bank stocks. I think that they're just an absolute train wreck waiting to happen. Probably better to look at this on like a monthly chart. So there's the image of the Canadian banking sector. And again, through that stupidity market, of course, the Canadian banks and all the banks, keep in mind, these guys are basically oligopolies in my country. It's so stunningly corrupt. But I think that's probably your Head and Shoulders top. So the Head and Shoulders is actually confirmed. They rallied it back above the neckline here. And I mean, you can see there's that is the 200-month moving average. And all it really is implying is we just got to go back down. Wicks and tails like to be eaten. If I was going to say where is value on this stock, obviously those lows. These guys were a whole bunch of trap bears, and they got released on this event here. Well, it looks like they built in a whole bunch of new trap bears, so at some point they will be released. And I wouldn't be surprised over the next, where is 2035? These things are not a buy again until over here. So what does this market look like? You can actually do the measured move off of this top here. Up to the head, and then clone that. So your downside objective on this guy, oh, what a surprise, right into that tail. So we could even think about maybe doing another bear put spread. There was a massive bear put spread that was put on this thing back up here. And at that point, this was the most heavily shorted bank stock in the world. I still think it is, but it's kind of funny when I rub that in the banksters' faces. They're all like, oh, you're selling the stock? Well, thank you. That gave me the opportunity to buy cheaply. And I'm like, you're going to buy this? What are you, on drugs? And I think they are on drugs. It's called hopium. So anyway, that might be a way to participate in the Canadian Fugazi, shorting the shit out of that. There's also other, an even bigger bank that looks even more in trouble, is the biggest bank in the Canadian market, and that's the Royal Bank. And I think it looks even worse. If we do like a monthly chart, just really sort of bigger picture. Yeah, you can see he's just now breaking down. And actually, this doesn't that look exactly like the Canadian currency? So I don't know whether we call that Head and Shoulders or not. This to me looks more like A to B and C to D. And then what a coincidence. Surprise, surprise. And then what often happens, and I've been talking to you guys about this, had a really, really good example of this, which I'll show you in a moment. Often these A to B, C to Ds actually are alt A, B, C, Ds, which means that we could come all the way down to 127. That's totally doable. Or if the shit really hits the fan, go all the way down to 1.618. And notice that's where I think there's real value here. Notice that low there and that low there. Look how that bracket's right around that 1.618. So, and the irony of it all, I mean, look at this. Isn't there a guy like his name? What the hell was his name? Newton? I think that's what his name was. And he said something like, wasn't there was a law that, matter can neither be created nor destroyed. What goes up must something. Anybody help me finish that? I mean, look at that. That's almost poetic. So interesting. There is your U.S. housing crisis. Look how all they did was they just brought this thing back down to trendline support. That's all they did. And notice 1.618 against these lows, just bringing it back down to trendline support. And if there's going to be a theme for today's video, I think there it is. Right? Remember, I got to put, how do we say this? Remember, folks, Canada is a short. And this is like the biggest bank stock in Canada. This is not bank stock. This is the biggest bank in Canada. This is basically just like you saying something like, Goldman Sachs is a short, or Lehman Brothers, right? 2008 financial crisis is a short, all that kind of stuff, right? And we can even start saying things like, confluence of level, right? So as good technicians, and this is the irony of it all. When this does happen, all these goddamn bureaucrats, they're going to be like, oh, well, we didn't know this was going to happen. Oh, look at that. There's a 2.618 right there. Ah! Like, that is insane how cool that is. There's just so many reasons to look for this piece of shit stock to come all the way. I mean, what is that? That's basically this thing falling in half from where it is now. And, I mean, the irony of it all is just how long is this supposed to take? Because we know that Canada is not a quote unquote buy cycle wise until we get to like over there. So what the hell is this going to look like? Well, you might find that the country of Canada actually goes out of business. It wouldn't surprise me. And this thing called the loonie, I mean, you knew that the Canadian currency was in trouble when they actually started to make the currency plastic. I don't know whether you've seen any of Canadians' currency units. They are made of plastic. Is that not the tell? It's a piece of crap. Oh, goodness. We can say cycle wise, Canada, let's say commodity countries are not a buy until here. And so, sadly, this is exactly what I'm trying to teach all of you when you take my education program, is I'm trying to teach you this. This is bigger picture stuff. This is stuff they're not going to tell you, sadly, in your sort of economics 101 class at university, because if they did start talking like this, they would be, of course, labeled troublemakers, and they'd probably lose their tenure. They're just not allowed to talk like this. And, of course, you see how many, that's a cool image. You see how many followers and shit that I have, eh? It doesn't surprise me that the Big Brother and all that, they do not want this message out. But, Brian, being the troublemaker that he is, we will point out food for thought for all you Canadians. Yeah. Well, there really wasn't any questions today, eh? So do we get questions? Oh, look at that. We got a couple questions. Yay. All right. Well, if we got an hour left, let's spend an hour talking Q&A. I don't know. Did you guys enjoy that rant? Did anybody get any value out of that? Of course. Oh, look at that. Cotter says, I disagree. That saying was coined by Blood, Sweat, and Tears in the song Spinning Wheels. All right. What goes up must come down. I don't know. I have no idea if Isaac Newton said that or not. Haven't you ever heard Isaac, the 3 laws of physics or whatever? Connor's holding me to task. Isaac Newton did not say that. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the clarity. That's good. I did either by being amused by information. All right, cool. Brian is the danger. Uh-oh. I guess the best option for us is fake alien invasion. Ha ha ha. Aliens kill all the computers, something like that. Yeah. Ha ha ha. Come on, man. I'm messing with you. All right, cool. Okay, let's get back to what we're supposed to be doing. And actually, you want another, and it's interesting. What are we supposed to be doing? Trades of markets and markets of note. Look what's putting in a bottom here. And I went and bought this because I'm a capitalist and I like making money from trading. Look at this. Do you all see this pattern? And big shout out to our TRI SOF club sort of captain, David, who's been watching this like a hawk. And of course, he wants to make money off these bastards too. So the question here is, what the hell is this? Does anybody know what this is? This is carbon credits and all that bullshit. What a surprise. And look at the double bottom. So, I mean, Brian, I'm diversified. I own a little bit of everything. I have gold shares. I don't really actually have any physical gold, but I do have lots of gold stocks. And actually, I think gold stocks, in fact, actually, somebody I was talking to recently, I suppose here, I don't know whether we should add it in here, but why not? And I don't know whether this helps Canada or not, which is a good question unto itself. But have you guys seen what Newmont did in the early 1980s? It'd be interesting to see what gold prices did in the 1940s. I'd be really curious. And unfortunately, we don't have charts that go this far back, but it would be really cool to get like gold charts. Does anybody know a gold stock that TradingView has records of that traded back in the 40s? Something I think there was a company called Homestake or something like that. I know that there is one or two gold companies that actually did trade in the 1930s. Mind you, they did fix the price of gold through that window, so that did kind of distort things. But anyway, what I did notice, and I was chatting with somebody online about this recently, and we've had this conversation around TRI, is look what Newmont, a biggest gold stock in the world, look at what it did. Right here is 1980. So that's that last fear cycle apex. Of course, they go in, they print just ridiculous amounts of money. Then, oh, well, you know what? We're going to get serious. Paul Volcker's war on inflation. They crank interest rates through the roof. But then look at what Newmont did. And who was president through here? A guy named Reagan. I don't know whether you ever heard of him or not. And one of the very first things he did when he came into power right in here was he said, enough of this US being pussies. We're going to go and build the biggest navy in the world, 300 ship navy. And we're going to go and hold this Soviet Union to task. And of course, right here was the whole hunt for Red October. The Soviets tried to respond to that massive buildup of the US Navy with their alternative massive nuclear submarines that they could park, ballistic submarines that they could park right off the US coast. And that went absolutely horrible for them. And really, the Soviet Union could not recover from that event. But anyway, the point being that the US actually went into like hyperinflation mode as it got used to this new M2 money supply world, right? So M2 money supply goes through the roof up here. And then, Volcker says, oh, war and inflation. What this really is war on Joe Sixpack. We do not want Joe Sixpack to get all excited and think that he's going to get a big pay raise. Oh, does this not sound a bit familiar? I don't know whether you saw in all of that rant that I did about the Fed and all that earlier. That's what this was all about. I started on this rant because this son of a bitch, US politician, is actually saying that the workers don't have any rights to demand compensation in the face of the banksters completely destroying their standard of living. And if you actually have the audacity to actually demand that your wages should be offset of this hyperinflation, then we're going to fire you and you're going to lose your job outright. Like, what the fucking fuck? Is this this guy can't be this stupid. And that's what got me to do this image, is that this guy is either dumb as a fucking fence post, which I know he isn't, or maybe he's got some large political donors that don't want the labor market to actually get fairly compensated in the face of this fuck you. So, I mean, this is the tragedy of this world that we have right now. So, the irony of it all is if we actually get to the point where workers actually can live a half decent standard of living, given what they've just done to us, then this is going to create inflationary pressure in our society. There's no way around it. And I do find it interesting how the gold stocks all through this period, this was supposed to be, Reagan was supposed to be Mr. Austere, Mr. Conservative. In fact, he went on Johnny Carson's show here when he was sort of governor of California and talked lots about how we were going to force the federal government to have a balanced budget. What did Reagan do through this period? Turns out that he actually okayed all of this voodoo economics that George Bush Sr. didn't like, right? He called it voodoo economics. And why do you think gold prices and gold stocks did this? Well, because it was just absolutely insanely hyperinflationary. Government spending causes inflation. Grill that into your heads. Right? People just can't seem to get their head around this. So anyway, point of the matter here is I wouldn't be surprised if gold does fairly well over this next little while as well. Okay. Gee whiz, Brian. Sure. I don't know how that, Brian tries to start these videos on a solid footing. We're going to talk about this today. Anyway, Brian went and bought a whack of carbon credits. And frankly speaking, looking at this chart, that's not a bad idea for all of you too. If you are in the market, if you're interested, keep in mind, I do like to just give you these ideas, no guarantees from the management, but what I would definitely say is, considering how cheap this was, this damn thing was like 20, 30, 40 bucks at the top of the market. You get a nice 50% retracement. You can easily sell halves on doubles, triples, quadruples, etc. So, do yourself a favor, take a good look at this. And that's sort of my free pick of this show. Obviously, as I said there just a second ago, no guarantees. But I've been playing this game long enough. I put my money where my mouth is. I went and bought some of this. So anyway, something for you to think about. I suppose we'll just take a quick boo at Bitcoin, then head on over to those Q&As. As I've said here recently, and I said in today's video, I think that the Bitcoin market is basically range bound for the time being. I'm a little concerned that there is quite a well-defined head and shoulders top that's trying to form here, which would, interestingly enough, if this does happen, correspond. I remember back in 2015, I think it was, everybody and their brother got used to Bitcoin being about $6,000 as a floor. And then all of a sudden, one day, the floor just fell out from underneath it. And instantly, we went zipping down to $3,000, or basically a 50% haircut. And it caught all of the noobs in Bitcoin off guard. And following that event, you couldn't fucking give away a Bitcoin. I mean, it was remarkable how sanguine the public was over Bitcoin. And I still think that that has to happen before this happening event. So that was this environment. Actually, no, not that environment. This environment. Last one. So we were bumping along, and then boof. And notice, look at the date, right? November 2018. Oof. 50% haircut right out of nowhere. Everybody thought this was a floor. Prices cannot go lower, and instant 50% haircut. And I honestly think that's exactly what's going to happen here, folks. I really do. Had interesting development in the mining space, like fundamental wise, that now we have, and this is what's supposed to happen, Moore's Law and all that kind of talk. Basically, the price to mine a Bitcoin is falling, and it will continue to fall. So I don't know how to interpret these numbers into our old buddy Shane's script. I did send him some PMs and some messages and stuff, asking him if he could help with clarification on all this. I haven't heard back from him, so I don't know whether I've done the script correctly or not. But Where is our cost of production? I think this is it. And I think I updated. If these numbers are inputted correctly, oh boy. Look out below. So as I showed you on that tweet, these were the numbers that came in here. 200 TH per second. I think that's tera hashes. And 17.5 J per T. I have no idea what that is. I remember on Shane's script here, if we just punch this in, he has in here hash at THs per second. So that makes sense. I plugged in 200 there. He has machine KW. And these numbers, like for this one up here, the KW was 3. And this one here, the KW was 3.25. This one here, KW was 2.1. I don't know if these numbers are correct, but if this K thing is, if I understand it, is it because when I put 17.5 in here, the number is right off the screen. So that's obviously not correct. Is it 1.75 now? Would that make sense on this? I don't know. But anyway, at 1.75, they come up with 5,700 and 3,000 for Bitcoin price. Now, is the mining like cost of electricity, is that correct? Maybe that's too low. I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to wait for Shane to get back to me on clarification of these numbers before I really start barking it out. But it is interesting to see that as time goes by, new equipment comes online. And this is exactly what I think the whole sort of Satoshi or whoever the hell that is wanted to begin with, is that you're going to have that as technology improves, Moore's law, the processing power, the ability to mine Bitcoin should basically double every 18 months or something along those lines. Now, as I had said before, I don't know whether these numbers are correct, but Shane, if you do watch this video later on, I'd love to get your input on that. And see if we can come up with a realistic, what is the cost of production if all these guys go and buy these new rigs. And from what I understand too, and I think Cotter even mentioned this, the cost of these rigs is uber insanely expensive. So do we incorporate the added cost of this equipment into the equation as well? I don't know. But point of the matter here is, I've made the argument all along that I do think that this low needs to be tested. And actually, I put out a tweet recently where I actually think if we just use some really basic logic, this 1415 correction was just about 85% from the peak. The 1819 correction was just about 85% from the peak. The 22 correction was 77% from the peak. Have they just set a trap here? I do think so. If we go 85% from the peak, notice what that does is that takes us back down into the last institutional fingerprint pivot we had before the face rip up move. And notice here on this correction, we came back down. Notice this big tail. This is actually a red candle. That was the last institutional fingerprint before the insane face rip peak. And then here too, notice this low was basically coming back down, didn't quite get into it, but back down into, this was the Silk Road reversal. And I actually think that this was the bottom right in here. But long and short of it, back down into this original bottoming window. Maybe not as far as this one here, eating that tail completely. And then we look at this one, and here's where the bottom comes in, just right in the middle of no man's land here. No, I like the idea that the bottom's got to come in back down in this original bottoming window. So that leads so supportive thinking that on whatever this test is, and also too, if we knock the price, if we're sitting at 25,000, just like we said in, I think it was in this window, right? Everybody got used to, oh yeah, the bottom's in at 6,000, the bottom's in. And then all of a sudden, boom, 50% haircut destroys the public and they just lose all faith. Of course, that was within a month or so of the actual bottom. I could very easily see we've got a head and shoulders top that's trying to form here. We get a 50% haircut from the neckline breakdown at 25. That takes us down to 12, which basically washes these lows and right back down into that original bottom. And that also takes us right down into that 85% correction window. And I hate to say it, folks, but I think that's what's going to happen here. It's just Brian's opinion. Obviously, no guarantees from the management. But since we did want to go through sort of what I'm seeing in the market, that's what I'm seeing. And I also noticed too, if we look at sort of things like the daily price chart, they've tried a couple times here now to get it to rally a little bit away from these lows. So you notice on the daily charts, what this really is this is 38.2 fib to the upside and 38.2 fib to the downside. And all they're doing is they're playing 38.2 ping pong. We've got these moving averages as major resistance above us. And then as you saw on the weekly chart, we've actually got like all three moving averages. You can't really see it because I've got this overlay of fractal price action here. But there's a huge shooting star right into the moving averages here. And we just had a shooting star event right into the moving averages here. So what does that create? And all of you who say, well, that's going to create a whole bunch of guys sleeping on the couch, Brian, I would say you're absolutely right. So looking at our weekly price chart, we've got a whole bunch of couch surfers. Here, let's get rid of this for the time being. Whole bunch of couch surfers there in that wick. This rally here relieved a bunch of them. But notice, rally right into all this trendline resistance. And now we got a whole bunch of couch surfers, maybe even living in the doghouse now because they went and bought, and now they're trapped in these shitty positions. Again, really good testament. Got all three moving averages, massive resistance here. And, you know, I've been talking to you about this as support and that as resistance now for the past month or so. And I hate to say it, folks, we are stuck in this range, and this 28,000 level is an absolute brick wall of resistance here, which is kind of a shame. So until that is resolved, I think we're stuck in a trading range. We could very easily revisit the bottom. We could very easily revisit the top. And it's just really a question of what's the short-term momentum. As we kind of pointed out, it's interesting. We had a little bit of a bid come in there on the market, and now they're just completely taking that bid back. So somebody did something or said something. Oh, ouch, look at that, eh? So we were, you know, kind of bearish, kind of bullish, now bearish again. This is just a mess. I think for fun, I had, so the algo's chopping all over the place here. And keep in mind, algorithms, they often get chopped up in these ranging markets. They get absolutely destroyed. For fun, heading into the weekend, I noticed this bearish bot setup, one high, two highs, three highs. There's the 25 level, and I was kind of like, well, what happens if we just front run this bot? So I strapped on for fun a paper trade. And it's interesting how all they could do was rally the market up, right up against this high. They blew out this high, this high, this high, couldn't blow this high out. So as a result, actually, I think I even had a short up in this area as well, but I guess you won't see that now. But let's see what we got here. Settings, positions, orders, brackets, executions. All right. Oh, yeah, look at that. I did sell up there. So this position, actually, it doesn't show it there. That sucks. So I originally shorted this was sort of like two positions. I shorted some here. Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay, so you can see shorted some on this event right here. This one high, two highs, three highs breaking down. This is called front running the bot. Actually, the bot technically doesn't fire until actually we go through that level. So that's kind of interesting how the bot is now actually alive. And then I put another order to sell right off that 78.6 because you know how much I love 78.6s for trade location. So that's what that guy is right there. So now my average short level is right there. And I'm up a whopping 31 bucks. Woo, buddy. So I'll ride this now. And what I'll probably just simply say is, in fact, actually, we can even put it, we should put the stop just above this level up top here. So we'll risk a grand total of 13 bucks on this trade. This is more just, actually, I guess 27. Ooh, wow, big risk taker. This is more just demonstration, just to show you how I would do this. And my target, regardless of algo, my hunch is the algo is going to get washed out here. But my target, believe it or not, is all the way down here in the short term. So maybe this is, oh yeah, and actually that makes perfect sense, right? Because we said the bottom end of the range is 25. So we dump down into that 25 level. I mean, maybe, who knows? Maybe we do alt ABCDs. There's a 4669 that's floating out there. And really all that is just bringing the market back down into these original levels here. And as you can see, I just keep this running sort of log of the system just to make sure that the system is actually taking trades. So, I mean, we'll see how this works out. My hunch is we'll probably flip back over to the short side here in the not too distant future. But interesting too, if we actually get that alt ABCD, it's nothing more than just a run on these lows. And that would make perfect sense. And you want to see a really good example. I've told you guys this, and I absolutely love this as a trading rule, is if you ever see a AB equals CD move, so there's A to B. Let's get this stuff off of here. So A to B. And then C to D. So you wait for the rally peak, wherever the heck that is. And then map out your A, B, C, Ds. So there's where the bot regularly takes profits. But if you ever see a market trade to its 1.618, like the old adage is 9 times out of 10, this happens, right? Oh, and if you like this broadcast, please could you hit the like button, subscribe, ring our bell or ring somebody's bell. Appreciate it. It helps us with the algorithm and all that. And feel free to leave a comment. Usually the only comments I get on these videos are from the silly bots trying to sell you something. This guy on WhatsApp turned a half a Bitcoin into $5 billion. Ooh, man, you better follow him. All that nonsense. But take this to the bank because it's incredible. If you ever see a market trade down to that 1.618 there, which would be basically a test of the lows, 25,000, bottom end of the range, exactly what we were talking about off of the weekly price chart. This is 99,999 times out of 100,000. The market's going to reverse off of this level. It might not happen that day, but usually the market reverses off that level. And we had such a great example of this on Apple recently. I couldn't believe how cliche this was. It was absolutely cliche. Let's see if I can show you this. Although I don't know where I put the chart. Let's go to load chart. Did I do it over here? It was a cool chart. I even tweeted it out. I'd rather show you the chart than the tweet, but no, I don't see it on here. So you know where I did? I might have put it was over. God, so many charts, eh? It's ridiculous. I think I did it over here. Let's see what comes up on the screen. Survey says. Oop, yeah, it's so slow. Maybe it's slow because there's so much on here. Yeah, well, there's the 1.618. But I'll just show you the tweet. It's so cool. And take, grab, everybody, you should all follow me on Twitter here. And or whatever we're supposed to call this stupid thing now. And my hunch is, I love this as a repository, sort of like a historical record, and you could go back and look at stuff over time. But I have a feeling Alan's about to fucking kill this thing, which is such a shame because it's such a good repository for all of my rants and tweets and comments and trades and shit. But oh well. Okay. Actually, some really cool trades setting up in the oil business right now, which makes sense because everybody in the public is bullish of oil. So it's about time to turn bearish. All right. So here is the Apple trade. And, all you in level one, you're working with Grim right now. This is Grim's he loves this 3-step setup process. And hats off to Grim. Love you for it. Here's a really good example. Number one, we want trade location. Here is that 1.618. Remember we said 99,000 times out of 100,000, 99,999.99999. You're going to get that setup. So there it is. A to B, C to D. Plotters are taking profits in here. If you ever get the market to rally all the way up to 1.618, that is a no-brainer sell. What do you think, folks? Was that a good trade level or what? I want to hear some love from you people. Hey, there's TBG. TBG, did you hear my positivity today? I'm trying to spin this positive. We can all go and buy put options on substitute drama teachers. There you go. But anyway, what a beautiful analogy of trade location on this. Right here, 9,999 out of 10,000 times. It's literally a no-brainer. Take a screenshot of that. That's got to go into your journals today. Are you with me? I want to see some feedback from you people. Tell me that you're going to take a screenshot or follow me, grab the tweet, put it in your Twitter feed. You have my sword, Brian. Oh, wow, that's a statement and a half. Actually, what time is it? I got 20 minutes left. I think probably we should probably go look at these questions. Okay. And looks like there's only 2. All right, so that's not so bad. All right. So, hi, Brian. Are certain M's and W's more valid than others? Remember, it's all about grade 3 English teachers. The more well-defined your M is, the more well-defined the market structure top is, right? And you can see, look how pretty this M is. And I would say you want to add something that's a total extra bonus. And that's that Canadian dollar image I showed you. There is that Apple. Can you see how this is actually an M within an M? So we can go and whoop, and whoop, there's an M. But we can also go whoop, and whoop, and whoop. So what I would say to you, and this is exactly like what we were talking about on that Canadian dollar earlier. I have to find the damn chart. Where did I put it? Maybe I was over here. Yeah. So we were looking at the Canadian dollar. Remember, I had said, here's a really good example of an M within an M. Can you see how, oh, darn. There's this. In fact, you know what this is? Holy shit. This is an M within an M within an M. So if you're looking for like validity of M's and W's, and let's make this one maybe, I don't know, purple. No, we need a color that stands out. Orange, right? All right. So M within an M within an M within an M. And you can even see, look, this is an M within 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 an M. So I think this is a really good analogy, that it's not so much is the M or the W valuable, is it's do we have multiple market messages all trying to tell you the same thing? And, we often say a good trade is a good trade is a good trade. Like I know there's some people that are really big fans of this particular guy in the market, and there's other fans that are really good fans, or other people that are, hey, Homestake. There you go. I thought it was called Homestake. But interesting. I couldn't find that, Cotter. Anyway, the point is, what you should see happen, right, with M's and W's, it's not you're just going to have this one signal float out on its own. It's going to be, you're going to get a confluence of signals. And so I don't want you thinking of just M's and W's on their own. What I want you thinking of is think confluence. And today's convo on Canadian dollar is great example where it's not one M or W, but turns out it's an M within an M within an M. And, kind of like, remember it was Fabergé or something like that. I can't remember what commercial it is, right? And in a weird sort of way, and they told two friends, and so on and so on. A good trade, the level is actually going to set up over and over and over, and you're just going to get a ton of signals that are all saying, I'm about to go down, so pay attention to me. So if anything, that's what I want you thinking more of, is, think of this, what I really want you thinking of is confluence. And, to keep it as simple as possible for you guys, and we'll put a fun little YouTube link there for you. How many reasons do we have to justify taking a trade? I mean, could you argue, obviously trade location is critical. You could argue that this is market structure. But the point being that, and you can't even see it on this image. You're going to have to really zoom in to see it. But the point being that, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my damn. Oh my goodness. Oh, there goes the ham. This is just one hell of a level here. Right there. I mean, that was the trade of trades right there. So, I mean, hopefully you can see it. And interestingly enough, look how this M just so happens to develop right off of this nice FU top here. So you can even see that they put the FU top in, they moved it a little bit higher here, but clearly this was the market structure top. Look at that. We got outside, downside, engulfing bar right off of that level after another FU. And then finally, where is the trade? Where is it? Oh, well, look at that. There's a nice double top within a double top. You could probably also do things like draw trend lines and say, well, can I have some market structure on the other side of the trend line? So that would get you going short here. But the point here is hopefully you can see confluence. There's M's just coming out of the yin yang here. So hopefully that speaks to what you're thinking. And of course, hopefully you can see these are very well-defined M's. I would even say that the more you see things like reload zones, like what a surprise. Well, look at this. And that's right into that reload short zone, right? So if you get the counter trend rally back up into the reload zone, then you're going to get that nice, well-defined M that your grade 3 teacher wants to see. That looks like an M I can take to the bank. So I don't know whether that helps answer that question, but what I want you thinking more of is, can I see a bunch of reasons, not just an M or just a W, but can I see a bunch of reasons? Maybe it's price structure, maybe it's multiple price structures, maybe it's fibs, maybe it's gaps. You know, there's really popular concept floating around now, this concept called fair value gaps, which just so happen to align with all the other stuff that we do, things like reload zones and stuff. Maybe it's volume profile levels. And some of our OGs were saying, you know, at those fair value gaps, my hunch is you probably pull up a profile and you'll notice that's either in a notch on the profile, MUOC, that kind of thing, which is trade location data, or maybe it's above value or something along those lines. Should they look more like double tops or double bottoms to be considered valid market structure? Yeah, absolutely. Right. Just always think about your grade 3 English teacher, or no, whatever. I'll just use that as an analogy. If you have like a W that looks like that, is that really a W? Or is this actually maybe an AB? Actually, maybe we should do it the other way around. AB CD. And if that's the case, if it is an ABCD, then what is this level called? You'd have to know harmonics to know what that is. That's a PRZ, or a potential reversal zone. So if our W looks like that, then maybe what it's telling you is actually I want to get back up here because this is where I'm going to put the M in, and we're going to sell up top here because this is actually the shorting level. So if your ultimate W doesn't actually look like a W, but more looks like one of these kind of funny kind of zigzag patterns, then I wouldn't say call that a W. And what I would say is, you know, if you went up to the chalkboard in grade 3 and teacher said draw a W and you did that, teacher might go, well, you know, technically you are correct, but that's not what I want to see. I want to see out of you, Johnny or Janie or Houseplanty, a nice serious test of the low and then a move back up through the middle. And you look at that and you go, that looks like a W. So food for thought for you there as well too. The more that this low tests this original low and we have a very well structured W, then the bigger the move is going to be on the other side. So if we think things like chaos theory, then 2.618s are all the way up here. That's going to be a pretty substantial move. But if we're working with a W that looks like this, then our chaos theory is that low up to the middle part of the W, which produces this, which again is probably more a conversation about our ABCDs, right? Up into that area there. This is actually a reversal level. Be careful. So food for thought. Hopefully that helps answer that question a little bit. We want W's to look like this, not like this. Having said that, could you frame a trade off of an idea looking like this? Yeah, because quite often head and shoulders patterns actually look like this. And sometimes in head and shoulders reversals, you actually get a very tight right shoulder here. And this consolidation, if you can find some sort of bullish resolution here, that actually sets up a half decent trade. The key here, though, is you have to absolutely see bullish momentum divergence off of the left shoulder and the head to actually justify hunting any kind of bullish structure on the other side of this confirmed bullish divergence. You want to get long, but it's not a double bottom. This is probably a little bit more advanced for you level oneers, and this is more sort of nuanced trading and understanding price action, because again, even the head and shoulders is basically just setting up a reversal point up top where this is a measured move. We go there to there, and then the ultimate objective is there to there. And actually that's interesting how that would line up nicely with 4669s. Again, This is actually a selling point up here, not a buying point. That would be taking profits there. Okay, I hope that speaks to that question. Good question. Let me know here, David, if you could answer whether I spoke to your concerns and you felt like that was a good conversation. All right, number 2. Hey, Brian, can you give any comment on this? It's a US M1 velocity from the Fed website, blah, 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 blah. Love, Waldorf, Cotter. Yeah. Cole and Cotter now are not Cole and Carter. They are Waldorf and Stadler. I think Stadler's the other guy's name. And I love you guys. You're awesome, right? That's Muppets. I think that's these guys' names are. These guys are awesome. So we actually have a couple of these guys. We're constantly throwing cheap remarks at me. You don't know what you're talking about, Beamish. Astoria, Waldorf, and Astoria. I think the guy's name's Stadler, though, but it could be Astoria. Anyway, so thank you, Mr. Waldorf. Okay, velocity of money. Interestingly enough, there are some people that actually say that the velocity of money is a function of inflation. So I'd also ask too, why not M2 money supply? Why are you studying M1 money supply? That there might be a difference between M1 and M2. Be careful there, okay? So I think M2 includes a whole bunch of stuff that is not included in M1. And we don't have time. I only have 10 minutes left here. So we don't have time to get into that. Theoretically, this should be, if this image is correct, and this is a velocity of money study, then this actually is very, very bad sign for the broader economy. It does, in my opinion, actually reflect the economy that I see in reality. And I think it does reflect the economy that you see down in the United States in reality too. And this is where it gets really, really dangerous for all of us in the public is, why did Weimar Germany ultimately collapse? Was it a function of the actual economy itself in Weimar Germany that caused the Weimar Republic to go on that massive money printing binge, which obviously caused the hyperinflation? If you need to be reminded what is inflation, go watch Mr. Milton Friedman. Of course, I've told you repeatedly. In fact, I think I even have it on the YouTube channel, a really good sort of educational piece. I consider it required watching, and there's good old Josh, required watching videos. Do I have Mr. Friedman in here? There he is, Milty. So you can go watch, I think this is a good hour and a half. That's sort of the textbooky definition of inflation. I don't know whether I want to add this cute little cartoon that was done by the Fraser Institute onto there, but it wouldn't be a bad idea. But this is sort of like a 2 or 3 minute summary. What is inflation? If you want to get the actual word from the horse's mouth, go watch that hour and a half one. So what the hell is going on here? Is this actually that the economy is doing so well and goods and services are absolutely just booming and the economy is rip-roaring? Or is the economy actually collapsing here and all they're doing is just printing money and throwing bags of money at the economy, but the economy itself isn't actually doing much? I hate to say it, but I think, I used to love going out. I had 2 guys that lived here locally, and we used to go out and spend, I don't know, a good $100 or so once every couple of weeks, get a whack of steaks, get some nice wine, gets a nice salad, nice bread, nice veggie. And we used to have just really nice meal once every 2 or 3 weeks. And we used to go out to dinner together. We used to go for Korean barbecue. And then this hyperinflation bullshit happened. And I'm just like, well, those days are over. And I have not gone and had, we went to a Korean barbecue, and it used to be that a half decent meal was like, 60, $70. I mean, which is ridiculous unto itself, but that's $30, $40. Korean barbecue. I mean, half of the meat that you buy there is kind of like shitty meat cuts and stuff. You're gnawing on bones and stuff. It was acceptable. It was environment. Then as soon as the fucking sickness kicked in, that bill went up to like 200 plus dollars for two people. And I was like, well, that's the end of that. White Spot, which, no offense, any locals here in Vancouver, this White Spot restaurant used to be, if I could spell, there it is, White Spot Restaurant. This used to be like the workings man's place to go and get a burger and fries with your family after dinner, right? We used to have images of, I probably don't even show it. They used to literally have like drive-in, right? You would drive in to the White Spot, get yourself a burger. You know, it was pretty cheap. After the sickness kicked in, a fucking hamburger and shitty fries and like a pickle, and it's embarrassing what you got, was like $25 for a fucking piece of shit burger. No more of that. Just don't do it anymore. I used to go to White Spot all the time. Haven't been there in probably 2 or 3 years now. Just don't go. So I actually think that this is very real. People are just not spending money anymore. And economic activity is grinding to a halt. And, you hear Jerry constantly, and I think he said it 2 or 3 times in the most recent broadcast, FOMC meeting, public broadcast after they do the rate announcement. I don't know whether you watched that show, but it was a lot of fun. We had another episode, a free episode that we do on YouTube. Thank you, Chris, for your help on that. And he even said 2 or 3 times through that, inflation, if we have inflation, then the whole system doesn't work. The economy just doesn't work. And frankly speaking, I think you're right, Connor. I think this is exactly what's happening to the broader economy. And the only way they're keeping this fugazi going is governments are printing money and deficit spending. That means that they're just making money up out of nowhere to try and offset the fact that the economy is just not doing much. So it's a scary image. And if anything, what does that have written all over it? To me, your other buddy, Waldorf and Stadler guy, Mr. Stadler is saying that, hey, in 2027, the shit is really going to hit the fan. All the celestial studies and all that. So also, too, I've shown you repeatedly, although it'd probably be too hard to find it, but I used to show you guys this all the time 6, 8, 12 months ago. And unfortunately, I don't have the table just handy, but you can see based off of this image, whatever it is, and geez, now it looks like it's gone. We had an initial inflation push in the early 1940s, but that's nothing in comparison to what happened in the latter part of the 1940s. And so unfortunately, this dickhead here, he's going to try and make it like illegal for workers to say, hey, quit fucking us, man. Give us some more money so we can handle Jerry's nonsense here. And this argument won't last. How you can't even afford to buy a house. I mean, it's ridiculous. Are people actually expected to live in tents? Is that the expectation? And I can guarantee you, we're going to hit a tipping point at some point where people are going to be like, enough is enough. Where's my rifle? I'm going to go and murder this guy. And yes, big brother, I just said that. So all of a sudden, boom, 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 down goes Beamish's social credit score. But they are literally building a revolution here if they're not careful. This disconnect of what's happening in reality, and really that's what this is. I mean, Joe Sixpack is not participating in this economy. From what I understand, everybody and their brother, to try and offset this insanity, is just literally living off of credit cards. That's not economic activity. That's more debt. And you want to see something absolutely disgusting? Oh, here, Brian's going to take his pants off. You ready? But, and I couldn't believe this. I don't know how I can show you this. I got to get a screenshot of it. But now, Capital One, have you people seen this? Somebody give me some feedback here. And of course, hit the like button and subscribe and ring our bell and all that shit. Please, if you are getting some value out of this. I see only 28 likes out of this whole rant here today. But Capital One now on YouTube is constantly advertising these, you got this, you deserve this, go and spend money. All right, here's how you apply for our credit cards. Hey, here's a link, click this link, and you can find out which credit card you won't be rejected off of. So you don't even have to worry about us rejecting you. Have you seen those? That's disgusting. Somebody in society, YouTube, Peter Fink, all that shit, is now jamming down the public's throat. It's okay to go and now live on credit card debt. Oh, at 30% fucking interest. I mean, it's shocking what's happening here, folks. So, fourth turning, great reset. Are we going to go through another massive hyperinflationary phase? TBG, how do we spin this positively? Help me out here, please. What's the positivity of all this? I guess what we'll leave off with here today, because it's time for me to head off to Liam now, is, oh, gee whiz, are we starting to hear people say that Bitcoin's going to go to zero and that Bitcoin is never going to go to new highs? Isn't that the kind of talk that we usually hear around market bottoms? Now, I still think, and I think it's dangerous for you to go in and assume 28,000, 26,000 is a market bottom. I do not think that that is a market bottom. From what I understand, there is supposed to be a big celestial event that our Statler brother said we all have to be very wary of here, the middle of October. So my suggestion to you is probably somewhere between this October low and the halvening event, there is going to be some sort of day of reckoning. But remember, when the public is panicking and the public is puking out, and some idiot comes out in the public and says, I will sacrifice my life to save capitalism, which is a load of horse shit. You should never talk about God's gift to you, this precious thing called life, and associate it with this nasty thing called capitalism. You should, as soon as you hear that, that's your point. All right, they are trying to trigger the humans to have an emotional reaction, and we're probably near the bottom. So this is what you all have to be watching for. And like a good TBGer, this is your opportunity. Everybody in the public is going to be insanely negative and insanely bearish. But ironically enough, you as a professional have to step in and you have to be positive through that. And we're going to call this the TBG positivity pivot, right? Mr. TBG? I mean, you can see it coming. We all know cost of production is down here. A nice little FU against these lows would make perfect sense. So just plan accordingly. All right, I think we've got to leave it at that. Slow and steady wins the race. Say a nice little karmic prayer for Liam and I. If you got some value out of these videos, please hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know that you do appreciate this content. Maybe consider joining our school program. We just did start up a new school term, so you're going to have to wait till the new year. Maybe watch out for Black Friday deals. We might have some really good Black Friday deals for you to ponder. Well, I know for people that do the dashboard, I'm going to give you an absolute deal that you cannot refuse into that Black Friday event. If you could do us a favor, we would if you're a site member, people just watching the free video, I don't really want to shill to you on this. But if you could, site members, just help us out to articulate what is the pain that we help you relieve, whether it be Brian's rants, whether it be signals. I mean, I tweeted out, I mean, our key reversal system right now is just the shit. This is so fucking awesome. And and you don't find this anywhere else online. You can't find this anywhere. Key reversals are the absolute shit. And I find it fascinating that everybody and their brother, of course, is uber bullish of oil right now. And look at that. We're starting to get key reversal sell signals coming out of the oil stocks. Do you think that's an accident? I don't think so. So anyway, point of the matter here is if you are a site member and you would like to try and help us, we'd love for you to fill out this form and just tell us a little bit about your experience at TRI. Remember also, too, you can fill out this newsletter form, get this in your email. And of course, it comes with a link to these Broiler Chicken shows. So, and also, hell, you might even make some money with some of the ideas that we sell on to you. Sell's not the right word. I don't care whether you buy this or not. It is just purely public disclosure. And as I say, I eat my own cooking. I did buy this. So all I'm doing is just telling you what I'm doing in the market. There is no shill here. I couldn't care whether you buy this or not. Call it a public service. All right. Have yourselves a great day. PMA for the win. Slow and steady wins the race. I don't know whether I forgot to mention something or not. Zoogs actually said that a friend of his is going to come in on the Friday videos, talk a little to us about DeFi, is it? I think it was. No, AI. So got great Friday content for after parties coming up. That might be a reason why you really like TRI. Just tell us in that feedback form. We'd really like to articulate the message. So this November sales window, we can really hit home why TRI is so awesome and why you absolutely need it in your life. All right. All the best and bye for now.